Hello, and welcome to today's webinar, Upleveling Your Teaching with Anatomy, and an introduction to Timani with Dr. Hannah Murray. My name is Heather Meyer, and I will be running everything in the background for our session today. We are so happy to host today's webinar with the Suzuki Association of the Americas as part of our continuing series, Suzuki in Action. So let's get things started. I'm pleased to introduce today's presenter, Dr. Hannah Murray. Dr. Hannah Murray is a classically trained violinist and musician's health specialist based in Los Angeles, California. She is a Timani teacher and certified yoga instructor who works with musicians of all ages and abilities to find ease, reduce discomfort, and optimize movements for more effortless performances. Hannah is an active and sought-after educator who is regularly invited to give lectures, workshops, and masterclasses around the country on health and wellness topics, posture, Timani, violin pedagogy, and yoga for musicians. She is the co-founder of Corp Sonore, Sound Body Wellness, a platform for musicians' health and wellness, where she hosts a podcast, curates a newsletter, and leads movement classes for musicians. As a performer, she's had the privilege of touring internationally with various bands and composers, performing as a principal player in orchestras across the country. When she's not helping humans, Hannah enjoys playing music for animals. You can find out more about her at www.activeviolinist.com, and that link is posted in our resources I'll share at the end of our session today. Dr. Murray, thanks for joining us today.
Hello, I am so excited to be here. And thank you so much for joining me today. I am about to lead a webinar on one of my favorite topics. And it occurred to me as I was getting ready for this that based on the season and the month, I probably should have called it Spooky Scary Skeletons for Suzuki because we're coming right up on Halloween. So I have some slides to share with you. I have some information to share with you. If you have any questions along the way, please pop them into the chat and we'll keep an eye on it. You can ask questions as we go, and I also have time at the end for you as well. So I'm going to share my slides now, and we're going to talk about something that really changed my approach to playing as well as teaching. And it changed it in the most beautiful way, because the depth of learning and appreciation that Timani gave me as a musician just made all of the things that I loved about my favorite performers even more amazing. And it also gave me tools to help my students start to find these resources and these up-leveling abilities within themselves. And I think it's really magical, and it pairs so well with Suzuki training and the pedagogy that we teach through the books and the method. So you heard all of this before, but just a couple extras in there. I have been, I don't want to say obsessed, but obsessed with musicians' health and wellness for a long time. And I just knew somewhere in there was a secret to unlock within our bodies that needed to be articulated more clearly. And so when I finished my doctorate, I wrote my dissertation about yoga and how using Iyengar yoga specifically to enhance violin playing. And then I kind of got to a place where I realized there was more to know and more to understand about the human body as it relates directly to music making. So I was really on a quest to find something that could answer my questions. And that's how I came to Timani. So just an overview, I've given this presentation or something similar at many different institutions and teaching establishments across the country. These are just a few of them that have been introduced to the magic of Timani. And if you stay to the end, or if you're watching this, I have a little gift for you at the end. So going back to my first slide, Corp Sonore is really the heart of where I pour my love for musicians and our deep need to take care of ourselves. And I do teach movement classes with a lot of Timani built into them, specifically for musicians. So I've got a little gift for you at the end. Okay, so let's start this conversation with, what do we need from the body to play or sing? There's a lot of things going on when we play an instrument or when we make music with our body. One of the things that happens, which many of us are very aware of, is repetitive movements. We're doing the same thing over and over again, thousands of times per day, putting the finger on the string, shifting up and down, taking a deep breath to play that beautiful first note. Whatever it is in our music making, we're doing it over and over again. We also need small muscles and endurance. The small muscles are magically hidden within our body. I'm going to show you and talk about a couple of them during this class. But it's really kind of a focus of music that we really hone in on these smaller structures, but we need them to go for long periods of time. I just went to see an amazing performance of the Mendelssohn Concerto yesterday and marveled at the fireworks that happen in 30 minutes on stage. The absolute endurance that the soloist had to have to just keep the magic happening. And so that's a really special quality for musicians. We really, really need to tap into that, and we do. Another thing we need is support and stability. We need considerable inner strength and power to support the shoulders and fingers and other things, but really that's where a lot of what we do happens, is the shoulders and the fingers. And we need mobility and expression. Letting go in the right muscles and supporting with others requires a very advanced motor skills that few of us are aware of because of poor understanding of anatomy. So I'm gonna give you the little tip of the iceberg on this today. We also stand in a relatively static posture. We're not like, sprinting 100 yards when we're doing these really complex things. We're not walking across stage very often. These happen in a very kind of defined place on stage or in a practice room or a teaching studio. We need extreme coordination in the brain and body. And we also have demanding high performance situations, competitions, we get feedback from others, and this can affect the coordination and stress levels depending on how we learn to respond to them. So if you think of anything else that we need, pop it in the chat. I'd love to hear what I forgot, because I'm sure I forgot a couple of things. And let's do just a little overview of what Timani is. So Timani is a system that helps you understand anatomy and the relationship between the brain, body, and instrument to create music effortlessly. Timani improves the way you stand, sit, breathe, and move, with benefits for coordination, your health, your musicality, confidence, and potential. Okay, so it's got a lot of amazing side effects or benefits. It's the specialization in the connection between the body and music. Okay, so it was developed about 15 years ago or so. It comes from Norway and is now in schools and ensembles and used by individuals around the world. It's taught in Norway, Italy, Egypt, the Netherlands, Switzerland, the United States. It's taught at the Royal College of Music in London, the Iceland Academy, Mount St. Mary's University in Los Angeles, and I have a couple Suzuki teacher friends in the Netherlands who also incorporate it into their teaching as well. It's also used by players in the Royal Swedish Opera Orchestra, the Oslo Philharmonic, Systema Gothenburg, and even the Palestine Youth Orchestra is up to Timani good with their music education. And big soloists in the world are championing this as a game changer in their own playing and music making. Leif Ove Ansnes, piano soloist and virtuoso, as well as players in the Mahler Chamber Orchestra, and many more are starting to use this to refine their elite skills even more. So in Timani, we work with three important concepts. We work with the idea of tensegrity, proprioception, and differentiation. And I'm going to go into what these three are in just a little bit, but these are three tenets of working with the body as a whole, getting it to collaborate with itself in a healthy and supportive way. So let's start with tensegrity. What is tensegrity? Tensegrity is the notion of tension and integrity combined together. And this slide structure over here, this is actually a tensegrity structure. So if you look closely, all of these wooden dowels or rods are suspended with tension, but none of them are touching. And in our body, there is a growing evolution of how we view our skeleton. It used to be thought of often as bones stacked on top of each other. And now we're starting to realize that they're suspended with tension in our body. So they're not like bone, 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 bone. There's tissue allowing them to move and interact and connect in diverse and dynamic ways. And so when we in Timani talk about tensegrity, we're talking about bringing this idea, how can we use this power in our body and spread it out over our whole system so that it doesn't kind of traffic jam somewhere. So as the second point here says, good structure in the body needs a little tension everywhere to create integrity. So we're going to try a little example of this. I want you, if you're sitting down like I am, I want you to just sit comfortably, and I want you to fully relax your tummy or your stomach area. Okay, just let it be its most relaxed self. And then I want you to bring your arms out to the sides and keeping that tummy very relaxed. Notice how heavy your arms are. Are they heavy? Are they light? Do they feel achy? How does it feel in your body to do this? And we're going to hold them out here for a couple more seconds. Ooh. And then put them down in your lap. And you can write anything you noticed in the chat. And now we're going to do the same thing, but we're going to engage our core muscles. Okay, so you're going to put a hand underneath your belly button, just below it, and gently pull your abdominals towards your spine. So you're not, it's not one of those, it's just a gentle engagement. And then stick your arms out to the sides. Take a few breaths here and notice if this has changed your experience of holding your arms out. We'll hold them out here just so we give it an even test. And then put your hands down. So hopefully you found a difference in those experiences. And we're all so unique and different that we're going to feel it differently. When we think about tensegrity, and an example like this is when our tummy is totally relaxed, we lack the appropriate tension and integrity in that area of our body to fully support the weight and stretch of our arms being expanded out to the sides. Okay, it's almost like if our body was a trampoline, the part of the trampoline that's at our stomach area is not pulled so tight. It's kind of sagging a little bit. So you can't really get that full bounce out of it, if that makes sense. Okay. The next thing we work with is proprioception. So the proprioception is the feeling of yourself in space. Whether you realize it or not, your body, your brain are keeping track of where you are at every moment of the day. They know that my hand is here and I'm using it to talk and say all the things. And it's keeping track of where my feet are, where my knees are, all of the distances and spaces of my body, okay? When this happens, our body does this, or our brain does this, where in relation to where we're making contact with the floor. So sometimes shoes can limit the type of information our brain is getting from our body, okay? So when we're talking about proprioception and the floor, if you're sitting, the floor is actually two different things. It's your feet on the floor, and it's also your seat on what you're sitting on, okay? So a firm chair with no cushion gives you a lot more information than a very cushy couch. The cushy couch is very comfortable, but in terms of having a clear picture and clear idea of exactly where your body is in space, a firmer surface often makes that experience much more vivid for our map of ourself. So we're going to play with this one a little bit too. This one's really fun. You're going to, again, hold your arms out to the side, close your eyes this time. Take a pointer finger. You can do left or right. Keeping your eyes closed, bring your finger in and put it on your nose. And then if you want to have some extra fun, bring your other hand in with your eye closed and put it on top. So that's a very simple example of your proprioception at work. Chances are you were able to land your finger on your nose without having to open your eye at the last minute to make sure it landed, okay? Our proprioception is happening all the time. When we're standing up, our proprioception gives us the sense of what's our normal posture, or what feels like standing up straight, or what feels a certain way is all based on our proprioception. So we want to make sure that we're giving our brain and our body accurate information when we're playing an instrument, so that we can do all of the amazing tasks and play all the amazing music with less difficulty. And our final conversation, or our final point that we work with, is something called differentiation. And in Timani, we talk about it in terms of muscles, the ability to choose which muscle fires first and does most of the work, versus everything firing as a unit, okay? So for this, we're gonna do a couple little exercises, and I'm gonna stop sharing my screen here so you guys can see. Never mind. I'm going to stay like this. So the first thing we're going to do is I want you to tense up your entire arm. Maybe if you're a violin player, you tense up your whole bow arm. So feeling from the shoulder all the way to the wrist, that everything is like, oh, you're at the gym and these muscles are like working, okay? And then open and close your elbow, keeping that tension there. It's an exhausting process, okay? At least it is for me. And I think if you're a teacher, when we see our students playing like that, we go, that's not what we want. That's not the beautiful bow arm that we want. We want something with more fluidity and ease, but how do I articulate that? So this is an example of how differentiation can really be a game changer when it comes to building the technique, the pedagogy, and the insight into helping your student at a very specific and individual level. So first things first, we're going to bend our elbows like we're at the gym doing bicep curls. So hands up, you're going to bend your hands or your elbows up as if you're lifting weights. You can take one hand, put it on your bicep, and you can feel how it really works, right? I can feel it's like, okay, we're doing reps. Got it. Now, if I want to bend my elbow without so much bicep engagement, because a bicep can be a really tight muscle, then there's a very subtle change that I can make to still bend my elbow, but with less tension. So for this, you're going to turn your hands over, and from the side, you're going to bend your elbow. It's going to come back in space. And you're going to notice, does my bicep engage as much when I do this? Mine doesn't, stays softer, still works a little bit. But the difference here is the first way I was using primarily my bicep muscle. And the second way, I was working with my brachialis. And I'll show you exactly where these are and explain what they do in just a second. But that's a beautifully simple example of differentiation at work. I'm still bending my bicep. I'm doing it in a subtly different way to get a dramatically different result. Okay, so I'll pause here and I'll just check in to see if anybody has any questions. Check in the Q&A right now. I'm seeing, what is the difference between Alexander technique and Timani? Timani is a very musician-specific anatomy and was created by musicians for music. My understanding of Alexander technique, and I'm not an Alexander teacher, so I don't know all the nuance of it, is that it was something created for acting that a lot of musicians found benefit for, and it brings an amazing amount of body awareness, but doesn't have quite as much of the specifics of exactly what we're working with. And then I also see, is this used by pianists too, or mostly string instruments? It's actually used by all instrumentalists. So Leif Ove Ansnes is a great pianist. He uses it. He's been working with it for years. When I did the training, I had everybody from flute players to physiotherapists, violin players, pianists. We had French horn players, I think, in there too. So it's a model that can work for everybody and does work for all instruments. All right, so now we're going to get into some Timani specifics about how we deal with anatomy and how it gets a little bit different when we're talking about muscles and the idea of relaxation specifically, I think, when it comes to anatomy. Because I don't know about you, but sometimes when I've had teachers in the past say like, oh, you're so tight, you're so tense, you need to relax. I've never known how exactly that should feel in my body or how to make that happen. And it would become a little frustrating because I would be stuck in a position of, I know I need to relax. I don't know how to make that happen and still play this very involved music in front of me. Or I see my students, they feel really tense and oh, just relax. You need to relax. And I can see that they're like, I really want to relax, but they can't quite figure out how to make that make sense in their own body. So we're going to talk about in Timani what we call the chocolate covered caramel. And this is our model for the body. Okay, it's very simplified, but it actually makes it a little bit easier to kind of understand how this can really work together. So the chocolate covered caramel, we have 3 layers when we're talking in Timani. I have yet to have this type of caramel in the real world. So if anybody knows what exactly mimics this, please let me know so I can actually taste the magic myself. But you'll see in my beautiful drawing and illustration that I did myself, this outer layer, this is our chocolate cover. Okay, when I'm going to get into the specifics here in just a second. This outer layer is the chocolate cover. Then in this middle layer, this is our chewy caramel. And in the middle, this is our soft center. Okay, and these are all analogies for different things and processes in the body. So let's talk about the chocolate cover first. So this layer of the body is ideally, like in life and in music making, for free movement and weight. Okay, if you think about doing the monkey bars, if you think about running, like sprinting to kick that soccer ball, if you think about all of the kind of big, like joyous movements, like yes, all of these types of big movements and experiences are often related to this chocolate cover or this outer layer. These are superficial muscles in the body, so they're close to the surface is what that means. They're not flaky and late for every meeting. They're really close to the surface, and oftentimes we can see them. So sometimes I jokingly call them the muscle beach muscles. They're the ones that you go to the gym and work out and you show off when you're at the beach and everybody goes like, whoa, look at those pecs or look at those biceps, okay? And they are a type of muscle fiber predominantly made of fast twitch muscle fiber, okay? And what that means is that they need a lot of recovery and oxygen to do their job well. That means that they're perfectly designed to do something like a sprint, and then they need to stop and rest and recover, okay? I also jokingly call these the Usain Bolts of the body. You know, he's probably, he is, I believe, unless I am not paying attention anymore, known as the fastest man alive for 100 meters, right? He runs incredibly fast for a very short distance, and then he stops. He's not a marathon runner. And this level of the body, these chocolate cover muscles, these are the Usain Bolts, okay? The muscle beach Usain Bolts of the body. They need to rest. They often pass over several joints. So this is a picture of the bicep I have here, and we'll explain it here in just a second. They pass over several joints, making them not ideal for fine motor control, okay? And when we're talking about music, when we talk about the hands and the fingers, we have these chocolate cover muscles in the hands and fingers. So think about that. We have muscles in our hands and fingers that are crossing multiple joints, okay? Some of them are crossing this joint. Some of them are crossing this joint. Some of them are crossing the wrist, and some of them are starting in the elbow, okay? So we have these muscle beach muscles in very small, unadmirable places as well. And we don't necessarily want to be using them for all of the holding and stabilizing that happens when we play an instrument. We want these to be muscles that help us play those virtuosic passages with ease, that they're free to move in a way that suits the music and aren't hampered by our need to find stability, okay? So here it says musical issues. When these are the primary muscles used for playing, it causes a forced sound, tension, pain, and discomfort. So I'm just going to throw it out there. You can put it in the chat. Are you a person who's ever felt fatigue or pain, or like you've been playing this exercise and, you know, after a couple minutes, you just kind of like run out of energy for it, or you're like, I keep trying, and your hands can't keep up with your mind or your idea or your attempt at whatever it is that you're doing. Double stops. Travis, you and me, we're the same. So oftentimes that's an indicator that we're using this layer or this level of muscles to do the support as well as the movement. So these muscles are not serving their ultimate primary purpose. And I'm here to tell you, we can find a solution to reappropriate some of that tension or some of that struggle to a place that's much more effective, okay? But I want to get into this picture of the bicep really quickly, because it's an excellent example of the crossing of two joints. So you can see it's red here. The bicep has two heads, both of which attach in the shoulder, okay? One of them runs over your humerus, your large upper arm bone, and the other one attaches here on this coracoid process, which is actually part of your shoulder blade that kind of hooks forward for muscles to attach to. And then if we look down here, it crosses the elbow. Okay, so that's a big muscle. That muscle is doing a lot of work. It takes up a lot of space in the arm. So our next layer is the chewy caramel, the middle layer. And this layer of the body is not quite so superficial. There's really, trying to think really quickly, I don't know of any chewy caramel muscles off the top of my head that you would see somebody out in public and go like, oh, look at that muscle. They're not that kind of muscle. They're deeper in the body and less obvious to observe, but they're very, very important. And this group is for support and stability. So these are slow twitch muscles. They need less recovery time. They are the marathon runners of the body. They are not the sprinters. They can do a job for a long time, or a longer time, I should say, without as much need for recovery and oxygen. They're deeper in the body, and they have fewer nerve endings in them, which is a really interesting experience because we can feel when our bicep gets tired. We have a really acute experience of physically what that means. When our bicep is, okay, I've done, I don't know, 15 reps at the gym or whatever, I can feel it fatigue. We have a lot of nerve endings there. Our experience of these deeper muscles in the body is different. It's not quite so vivid. It's something that many of us have to wake up to because it feels different for many anatomical reasons. We don't have as many nerves endings that go straight to them. These muscles typically cross only one joint. And I say typically because there's a couple in here that in Timani that we talk about that do go, they cross more than one, but in general, they cross one joint. So you can see in this photo, this is the brachialis. This is that muscle we used the second time when we bent our elbow, and it only crosses the elbow. It does not reach up into the shoulder. It doesn't go any other funky, surprising places. It has one very simple location. Also in this layer of the body, or in this group, is the fascia and connective tissue, which is really important to the concept of tensegrity. Okay, so it's been the research into fascia has been relatively new compared to our research into muscles. For many, many years of research, they just didn't really know what it was, so they kind of got rid of it and studied the muscles. And now we're starting to understand and appreciate this fascinating and very important network of connective tissue all through the body. And it's amazing what it can do for your vibrato, what it can do for the bouncy life energy that you see, like your favorite performer on stage just seems so alive and so vibrant. They have a really amazing tensegrity, yes, but that bouncy experience is, I don't want to say it's a byproduct of fascia, but it's a appropriately distributed tension, if that makes sense. And we also include the skeleton in here. So the bones, these are all support and stability in the body. So just as I talked about there being chocolate covered layer muscles in the hands and forearms, we also have these chewy caramel layer muscles in the hands and forearms as well. They're much smaller. So in the hands, we have, in this level, we have muscles that are only in the palm, okay? And we want these muscles to be nice and strong because they're the local stabilizers. So if you're a violin player, for instance, I've seen some double stops in there. We can offload some of the tension that double stopping brings to our left hand by strengthening our intrinsic hand muscles, which are chewy caramel muscles, okay? I've got some exercises to do that. Today, unfortunately, I'm not sure if I've got time to share them all with you, but at the end, I'll show you how you can learn some more. And our final layer, that soft center, this is for free breathing and organic flow. Okay, so if you think about your best performances, if you think about the most inspired performance you've ever seen, it wasn't locked, or didn't it feel like you could just go, or the energy or the inspiration was just flowing out of you, or you could feel just this magical experience that was hard to articulate, and you want to kind of always be creating that. This is in Timani referred to as our soft center. Okay, this includes our deep breathing muscles, our organs like the lungs and heart, the things that are just uniquely within us. And it also includes the psoas muscle, which is what I have showing here. So the psoas is actually, psoas major is this big muscle here that connects the spine to the upper leg bone, okay? And your psoas is what is known in the body or in the anatomy world as a very emotional muscle. It's a very primal muscle. It's known to be your fight or flight muscle. it activates. If you think about, oh, I saw a bear or something that scared me, your body activates to take charge, whether that is to fight or to flight, or you're about to go on stage and that kind of jittery experience of, what is this feeling? Your psoas takes a big measure in that. It interacts directly with your central nervous system, as well as, it's not in this photo, unfortunately, your diaphragm. So it's intricately connected to your breathing mechanism. So your body gets a sensation of, this is scary, take care of yourself, and your psoas activates. It can be a really powerful muscle for good and for bad. I don't mean to demonize a muscle, but it's magic. It's a magic muscle in our body that deserves to serve our music rather than take away. So sometimes when I think back on my performances as a student and as a professional, there have been times when I've been standing backstage feeling out of control of my body, that I'm shaking, or I'm so nervous. I feel like I can't focus, or I can't get in control of what I really want to do. And in those moments, I never give my best performance. Maybe you agree, maybe you don't agree. Let me know what you think. My best performances come from a place of centered groundedness, where I feel like I'm in my most authoritative sense, if that makes sense. So I can walk out on stage and know that I have the confidence to do the thing that I want to do. And in Timani, we're here to set the body up to do that. That's really the core goal, is that your body is working for your musical intention. And we can use our anatomy to harness the power and the potential within us to make our musical ideas come to life. And that's what these 3 layers work together to do. I joke that maybe you eat your Twixes differently than I do, but to get the full flavor of something delicious, it's not often that you pick apart all the little parts of it and eat them one layer at a time. You often take the whole experience in as one bite and relish the flavor combination that happens. And that's kind of a good way to think about the body. We're not only working with a soft center, we're not only working with the chewy caramel, we're not only working with the chocolate. The whole system works together to create something beautiful. Okay. The other example I like to give when things get a little confusing between the 3 layers is the chocolate cover is really, easy to understand in that, like, okay, I go to the gym, I do something fatiguing, I take a break, I got to rest between sets, or I take the day off, or whatever it is. When you get to these deeper layers, especially these deep breathing muscles, there's never a time in your day where you go, oh, I took too many breaths, I need to hold my breath and recover. Or, oh, I've breathed, I was breathing too deeply, I got to give myself 30 seconds off from breathing. No, these are the muscles and structures that propel our life forward in beautiful ways. So I'm going to check in with the questions here for a couple seconds. I am not familiar with Stott Pilates movement. Timani is actually a combination of a bunch of, it's a combination of the creator's names. The creator, her name is Tina Margarita Nilsson, and Timani is Tina Margarita Nilsson. So it comes from her name. Just an easy way for you to remember what it is. All right. Okay, so I am going to show you here some good, very basic exercises that you can bring into your own playing, and you can also teach your students. So let me know in the chat if you're an orchestra teacher, if you let your students sit down, if they stand primarily, whatever the setup is for you in your classroom teaching. or private teaching. Sitting posture, sitting is something we all have to do, whether we're playing music while we're sitting or not. But I will say, as a person who's played in a lot of orchestras, which equals a lot of sitting down, sitting posture is a game changer for a lot of different tension and musical experiences while playing. So if you're a person who has felt a lot of shoulder tension, maybe if you play in an orchestra, you get done with rehearsal and you're like, oh, I'm so tight in my shoulders. We're going to go back to that idea of tensegrity, evenly distributing tension across the body in a way that's helpful. So looking at the body as a whole, if we're getting this kind of traffic jam experience of tension in our shoulders, that might mean that we don't have enough tension helping us or supporting us somewhere else. And sitting posture, it often has to do with where we're making contact with the floor or our seat, okay? So in this one, I want you to, we're gonna go through it because I just saw the time, so we're gonna go a little quickly. We're going to find our sitting bones, okay? And I love this example or this picture I found. So you can see, here's the pelvis, right? It's not the red part, that's the spine. Here's the pelvis, and at the bottom of the pelvis is what we know as the sitting bones, okay? And we're gonna find those together. So reach your hands underneath your seat until you feel two knobs, one on each side. In my body, they feel kind of like doorknobs. In your body, they might feel different. And you're gonna pull your hands out to the side in a way that makes those sitting bones dig a little deeper into your chair, okay? So if you're like, what does that mean? Put your hands back underneath you. You can shift side to side. You can really feel the sitting bones in your fingertips if that's not too painful for you. And then keeping that sensation or that awareness of where those sitting bones are, just remove your hands so that transfers to your seat, okay? And from here, we're gonna tilt our pelvis forward and backwards, okay? So we're gonna take, oh, I lost my mouse, there we go. We're gonna take the pelvis and this top part, you're gonna tilt forward. So your bum will move back behind you and your upper body might move forward, or just at the hips, you can tilt up just the pelvis. And then we're gonna move this tilt back. So we're gonna tuck our tailbone right here underneath. So I want you to go back and forth. As you do this, you're gonna do the anterior tilt, tilt forward, and then you're gonna do the posterior tilt, tilt underneath, back and forth, okay? And as you do this, maybe bring your awareness a little bit more to those sitting bones. You're rocking in front of them, and then you're rocking to the backside, okay? And do it one more time, both directions, and then find what feels like right in the middle, where you're most balanced on the sitting bones. This most likely is the place where you're the most stable, okay? For the sake of time, we're gonna move on to the next slide because I wanna give you guys a couple tools for standing as well. I know a lot of teachers and a lot of players practice and teach their students standing up. So I wanna give you a couple things to consider for your standing students as well. But to summarize this, our sitting posture has a lot to do with how we hold tension in our shoulders and how we hold tension and distribute it through the rest of our body. If we have appropriate activity at our seat, where our seat is sitting on a chair, we can reduce the amount of tension needed for stability in our shoulders, okay? So we're redistributing the work to work for us. If we redistribute the work to work for us, it frees up more potential for movement and dexterity and music making, right? We don't have to support and move in the same places. And then I love this. I love these little dolls helping each other with standing posture. I just thought it was like the perfect image for this. So when we talk about standing posture, it gets a little bit more complicated because we're only making contact with the floor at our feet. We get less support, okay? Which means that we have to stack more aspects of our experience on top of each other in a beneficial way. And this is where our proprioception can really kind of confuse things, because what might feel like we're standing up straight because it feels normal or it's our habit might not actually be optimally aligned for everything we're doing. So when we're standing tall or standing up straight, I prefer standing tall because it helps this kind of powerful experience and has less of the very rigid type of tension in it. We want aligned bones. We want our shoulders over our hips, over our heels. We want that feeling of power from the ground throughout our entire body. We also want our core stability to help our free breathing. Okay. And for right now, we're going to do some ankle exercises. Okay. Standing like a mountain is actually something I relearned in Timani, but I will say my Suzuki teacher trainer taught us standing like a mountain in my book 1 training. So shout out to my Suzuki teacher for actually bringing this concept to my life before I had Timani to explain why it was so amazing. And it's the standing like a mountain, for anybody who doesn't know what it is a standing of power that people can like push against you and, you know, really try to knock you over, and you stand so powerfully still and with this authority that kind of spreads out and takes up room. Okay. And if you've ever tried to push somebody standing like a mountain, good luck. If there is any weak spot in the trampoline, as we were talking earlier, you'll be able to push them over or kind of make them move. But if they're really that tensegrity is fully distributed, you can push on them so hard and they won't move. It's an amazing power from inside the body. For today, we're going to do some ankle exercises. So if you've got shoes on, I recommend taking them off for now if you can. We're going to go 1 foot at a time. We're going to go quickly. And the first thing you're going to do is point your toes and then flex your toes. So flexing your toes back towards your face. So if I show you with my hand, I'm pointing my toes and then flexing my ankle back up towards my shin. Do that a couple times, just 1 foot. And then you're going to rotate. So if you're looking at the bottom of my foot, I'm going to rotate at the ankle like I'm trying to look at the sole of my foot. And then I'm going to rotate away. Okay. So this is the arch of my foot here. I'm rotating out, rotating in, out and in. And then I want you to spread your toes out as much as you can. Okay. If you look down and you're like, why aren't my toes spreading? You can go down there, help them out, use your hands to spread those toes a little bit more. And then put both feet on the floor and just stand up on your 2 feet. And notice the difference side to side. You can write your experience in the chat, and then we're going to even ourselves out. I don't want you to feel so unbalanced through the rest of your day. So this exercise is waking up the ankle and the feet muscles, is wakening up our proprioception of exactly where we're making contact with the floor. And by clarifying that map in our own body, it allows us to stand with more ease and comfort because we have a very clear picture of what it is we're standing on, where the floor is, and where our body is in relationship to that. And that might seem so simple, but it's almost, I don't want to say it's relaxing, but the clarity of that message to the brain takes a load off the body, or takes a load off the experience that frees up space to do something else. Okay. And in this case, it's make music. So we're going to do the same thing on the other side. So start by pointing and flexing that foot and ankle a couple times. And then you're going to do the same thing. You're going to try to rotate that ankle as if you're trying to see the sole of your foot. And then you're going to rotate away. Okay. I'm rotating. I can't see the sole of my foot. I don't have that. Nobody really does. I'm sure there's some anomalies out there. Nobody can turn their ankle totally to look at the sole of their foot. So we're moving in that direction, and then you're going to push it away. One more time, and then push it away. And then spread the toes out on this side as well. You can use your hands to help if your toes are being stubborn this morning or this afternoon, depending on what time it is for you. And then put that foot back down on the floor and stand up on your 2 new feet. And let me know how that feels for you. All right. All right, good. Looks like some of you guys are really feeling some nice benefits from that. So we've only got a couple minutes left. I've got some time here for questions, but as the team is helping me get to the questions I haven't seen already, I'm going to fast forward here to give you time to write this down if you want to right now. Some information about how you can keep in touch with me and a gift I have for you. So if you found this tip of the iceberg interesting in any way, I'd love to keep in touch with you. You can join one of the movement classes I teach for musicians for free by using this code SAA10 at checkout. And it'll give you access to any pre-recorded class I have on the Course in Our platform or a live virtual class. So I'd love to see you in class, or you can enjoy it on a different schedule and then just let me know what you thought of it. And I am ready to hear any questions I might have missed, if anybody wants to help me with that.
Yes. Thank you so much, Dr. Hannah. This is awesome. We have Joyce, who is 5 months into her right shoulder surgery recovery. The repair was extensive. Injury was specific to a violin with a 47 year career in symphony.
Yeah.
Her therapist is working with her to build endurance and strength without lifting her lat. Do you have specific exercises for this?
Oh man, I mean, yes. I would like to say first that I'm not a doctor. I mean, I'm a violin doctor, but I'm not a medical doctor. So I always think consulting with and working with a medical team first before you add anything else to what they're telling you is really, really important. In my experience as a teacher and a practitioner of Timani, what helps us so much as violin players in orchestra, posture, number one, that sitting posture. In this case, because you're still in the recovery process and we want to honor our body and how long it can take to get back to a place that we feel is, where we were, I would focus a lot on that pelvic interaction with the chair. Okay, so really focusing on those sitting bones to take the load off higher up in the body. That's where I would start with that. I'm going to flip here. Oh, I forgot to put it on here, you guys. I'm so sorry. I do have on the Course in Our website, you can book a 20-minute free consult with me, and we can talk exactly about your issues or the questions that you have specifically. If you go to courseinor.com, you'll find it. And I put it in the PDF handout as well, if that makes it easier.
Thank you for sharing that. Now, Amanda has a question similar to mine. When we work out the outer layer of muscles in the gym, do the inner layer muscles get worked out at the same time?
Yes, that's a good question. So there's never a way that we can just compartmentalize the body. I'm working with my bicep, and my bicep is doing most of the work, but it doesn't mean my brachialis is like out to lunch, right? Our whole body works as like a beautiful system together. In differentiation, we can choose which muscle is firing first or doing most of the work. But when we go to the gym, and let's say I'm working on my abs and my core, many of the exercise, or I would say all of the exercises, are going to engage all the core muscles, but they're going to fire specific ones to do most of the work depending on what exercise you're doing, if that makes sense, because each muscle does something slightly different.
Thank you. And how do you feel about the use of wedge cushions in a seat for seated musicians? Joyce wants to know that.
That's a good question too. I have many colleagues who use them. Um, and I think I haven't worked with them enough from my own perspective to say anything with authority, but I think that if you can feel your sitting bones and you feel a release of tension in your shoulders, then it it can't hurt.
Thank you. And Travis wants to know, when teaching while standing, what phrases can we use in encouraging good posture that emphasize tensegrity versus the
Yeah.
stack of bones idea when communicating a healthy, relaxed posture?
Oh, that's excellent. So, Travis, I think sometimes the easiest place to start is with some subtle cues. So, when you're standing to play and you notice your breath, does your breath feel like it gives you a very subtle lengthening experience, or does it feel like an experience that only goes out to the sides or moves in one direction? If you can feel that subtle lengthening, chances are you're working with a subtle and beautiful layer of tensegrity in your body. And that would be the first place I would check.
Thank you. Rebecca wants to know, do you have any resources for very small musicians like the
Oh,
pre-twinklers?
yes. So pre-twinklers, I love the idea of growing healthy musicians from the very, very start. That's really where my heart is, in prevention, and my heart is in growing the next generation to be just optimally set up and aligned to make the beautiful music they deserve to make. I don't have any resources right now that specifically work with them, but I'm happy to set up a consult and develop things for you that are easily applicable for the young ones too.
And lastly, Maria wants to know, is Feldenkrais similar to Timani?
So I love Feldenkrais and I love Alexander's technique. And I will say in many ways there is overlap. I think anytime you work with the body, there's going to be overlap between modalities. I love in Feldenkrais the deep, deep inner experience that you wake up to and you feel your body on a new level that I think a lot of musicians have never tried or had the opportunity to work with. And in that way, Feldenkrais and Timani are a lot of like, because we really want to work on that level and that experience. I think from my experience, Timani goes further in the very further into the weeds of exactly what musicians need, all the way to our fingertips. So we understand how to work with the muscles all over the body very specifically to optimize music making. And I think that for me is probably the biggest difference.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Hannah. This was awesome. I think I can speak for everybody at
I'm just
how,
going to leave this up here just so you guys
thank
can keep
you.
in touch with me. There's my
Yeah,
email address.
and how informative this was and helpful for us musicians at whatever stage we are in our career. Thank you everyone for attending. And I would like to invite you to go to Suzuki Association of the Americas, our website, and check out that conference page information. Because if you liked this webinar, the conference is packed full of informative sessions just like this. And we're in person, so we get a chance to talk to each other in person. So please check out our conference 2024, March 2024. Thank you so much for coming, everyone.